Good evening and welcome to the 22nd meeting of the 24th City Council. We'll call this meeting to order. All the councilors are present via Zoom this evening. Councilor Pena will be with us in just a minute. We begin our meeting like we do every meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance in English, tonight presented by Councilor Jones, and then the Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish, led by Councilor Borrego. And so if you will, join us in our moment of silence and then Councilor Jones.
Thank you. If you'd all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you, councilors. We appreciate that. A few housekeeping notes, and then we'll get to our items on the agenda this evening. As was noted in a press release from our office issued on Friday, was posted on our website and on our published agenda. This meeting, like almost all of them this year, has special procedures given the governor's declaration of a public health emergency and additional restrictions on public gatherings. Therefore, tonight's meeting is being held via Zoom video conference. But we've gone out of our way to try to be sure that we can still include members of the public in our meeting. And so members of the public, city staff, and the media have the ability to view this meeting live through 3 different platforms: on GovTV, on Comcast Channel 16, the GovTV website, and on YouTube. Those live streams can be accessed from most smartphones, tablets, or computers. And for those of you watching live online, we thank you for joining us. Video recordings of this and all of our council meetings remain available for viewing at any time on the city's council's website. Our staff is available via telephone. If members of the public need assistance in accessing those videos, just call us here, 768-3100, during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. The council is accepting live public comment today, as well as written comments. Any written comments that were received to the council by 1 o'clock were distributed to councilors earlier today. And so we will begin tonight with proclamations and presentations. We have Councilor Borrego, who's presenting a proclamation relating to veterans and the Veterans Integration Center. And then we have 2 presentations from the administration. And then we'll move into general public comment. So if you're with us this evening and already signed up in our waiting room for public comment, we'll get to you after we complete those items. So first, we'll yield the floor to that councilor from those Northwest neighborhoods, Councilor Borrego, for your proclamation for our veterans.
Oh, good evening, Mr. President and councilors. I believe Councilor Pena was going to do the first portion of this. Is she on yet?
She's actually coming in right now. If you'd like, we could do one of the other presentations first, or we could just wait a minute till she joins us, whatever your preference.
Well, if while she joins us, can we introduce the individuals from the Veterans Integration Center who are here to accept it?
Absolutely. I see a good friend, Bobby Eric, from the Veterans Integration Center. Bobby, are you still there?
I am, sir. Thank you.
Hi, Bobby.
And Bobby, do you have any other guests with you this evening? I know you're representing your organization.
Just me right now, sir.
Thank you. Well, Councilor Borrego, I see Councilor Pena is here with us, and she's just in time to help present your proclamation to the VIC. And so we'll turn the floor back over to you both.
Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councilor Borrego. Did you want me to go ahead and get started? I apologize. I was having trouble with my Zoom. So
yes, please.
Welcome everyone who's here with us this afternoon. Whereas on November 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m., the United States and its allies signed the Armistice Agreement ending World War I, a war that reaped heavy tolls on American, Canadian, and European families, with losses of and injury to the countless members of the military, and Whereas in 1926, the United States federal government recognized Veterans Day, occurring every year on November 11th, as a national holiday in honor of those brave soldiers on land, sea, and air who defended our country. And whereas Veterans Day honors those who have served the country in war or peace, and would like to offer gratitude to all those who have served in the United States Armed Forces. And
Counselor Sena?
Whereas Veterans Day is a day set aside to praise the bravery and sacrifice of military veterans instructed in combat and trained to preserve and protect the United States and its citizens. And whereas on the first Armistice Day, November 11th, 1919, former President Woodrow Wilson expressed, "The war showed us the strength of great nations acting together for higher purpose, and the victory of arms foretells the enduring conquests which can be made in peace when nations act justly and in furtherance of the common interest of men, therein articulating that through acts of battle, our U.S. military ensures peace and prosperity in the battle's aftermath." And whereas many of our nation's veterans live with post-traumatic stress syndrome, lost limbs, and other injuries resulting from their time in service, they should be granted great amounts of care, consideration, and the benefits of consolation, and in appreciation for the extreme conditions veterans endure for their fellow countrymen.
And whereas throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, the city of Albuquerque and New Mexico have proudly offered countless beloved family members to the service of their country, many meeting with tragic ends and many more with joyful returns. Be it proclaimed that the council, the governing body of the city of Albuquerque, hereby honors New Mexico veterans and the peace they preserve for our country this Veterans Day, November 11, 2020, and recognizes the vital contributions of our veterans to the preservation and prosperity of the families, communities, and the country they serve. And I would like to start by thanking Councilor Pena for bringing the Westside councilors together this past week to honor our veterans at a little breakfast burrito celebration that we had with them on behalf of Councilor Ken Sanchez, who was with us last year at this time. And I would like to recognize Bobby Earring. Did I say your name right? I hope I did. I'm sorry if I didn't.
It's enough, ma'am.
And if you'd like to say a few words, please do.
Mr. President, Councilwoman Borrego, members of the council, I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of all veterans. Being a combat wounded veteran myself, there's a sincere admiration when elected officials support veterans and their families in times of peace and war. And I know that the veterans and the families that work at the VIC, as well as the clients that we serve, sincerely appreciate that continued support. So thank you very much for acknowledging and recognizing veterans and their families.
Thank you for being with us this evening, Bobby. And you represent the Veterans Integration Center, which is located on Central and Eubank. Is that correct?
Central and Tramway, ma'am.
Tramway. Would you like to say a few words about the Integration Center?
Sure. So the VIC is actually celebrating its 15th year this year. We've been around since 2005, providing primarily homeless services to veterans and their families throughout the entire state. Obviously, our largest footprint is here in Albuquerque. About 70% of the clients that we serve each year are in this area. Although our mission is ending veteran homelessness throughout the state, we hope that people will call upon us anytime they need anything with regards to veterans and their families.
And just for the public's sake, you do accept donations, is that correct?
Absolutely, ma'am. We take donations of all kinds. We continue to remain operating 100% even with COVID due to the essential nature of our services. We cannot do the work that we do for veteran families without community support. So again, if we could do anything, even donation pickups, we also do that throughout the area. Please give us a call, and thank you again for the support.
Thank you for being here this evening.
And Councilor Pena, thank you as well for helping present that, and Councilor Sena. And Bobby, let me just say congrats. Thank you for all the hard work y'all put in. We're going to have a presentation in just a little bit about expanding our housing voucher program, but I want to acknowledge and say thanks. The VIC has really stepped up for years, but particularly in the last few years and in Southeast. Can you remind me, how many veterans are you currently housing at the VIC Center in Southeast there off of Eastern?
So between our emergency and transitional housing, we can house up to 50 veterans. Right now, we're probably about 60% capacity. We also have an additional 30 to 35 veterans in our rapid rehousing. So in any given month, it's about 100 veterans and their family members.
That's a huge deal, and we appreciate it. I know how hard it's been for funding on and off and up and down and all this time, and we've talked about it. I'm glad the city is a partner. Councilor Benton has been a champion as well in bringing the VIC shuttle to provide those services. So provide a critical service, and we appreciate it. Councilor Borrego.
Council President Davis, could you ask Bobby? Bobby, would you please give us the phone number in case people want to contact you?
Mr. President, Councilor Borrego, yes. So it's 505-296-0800. You can also find us on the web at nmvic.org.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your service, and thank you, councilors, for bringing that to us. So thank you for helping to recognize our veterans. Councilors, any other questions for Mr. Ehrig and the VIC? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next presentation. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you for your hard work. I believe we have Director Pierce and Ms. Huval from Family and Community lined up somewhere in City Hall. And so we're going to see if we can bring them on board. I see Carol. She's at home. I recognize that green wall from previous meetings. And I see Lisa. Councilors, if you will remember, during our most recent budget conversations, the council had asked the Family and Community Services to come back and bring us a plan to distribute and use the almost $2 million in housing voucher funding that was unspent in the last year's fiscal budget. I know the department has been working closely with the administration and some of the councilors and community organizations to identify opportunities to get that money out more quickly, to bring in new vendors and engage with new organizations. The director shared some of this with me last week, and we asked her to bring this forward so that we all had a chance to see what their plan is and the timeline for helping to get that one-time supportive housing funding out. And so we've asked the director to give us a little time this evening to share that plan and to take your questions and input before they move forward on executing and spending that fund. And so, Director, if I think that's all, but by all means, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilor Davis and City Council members. Thank you for this opportunity to present this evening. Housing, as we all know, is a really important part of our strategy to address homelessness and to keep people safe and in their homes. So I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Director Huval to walk through our presentation so you can see our plan, and then we'll stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Not sure who's controlling the slides, but go ahead and go to the next slide. And we wanted to start with a very quick overview of supportive housing, just to make sure that we're all using the same terms the same way. And please go ahead to the next slide. So supportive housing is essentially help paying the rent, rental assistance, plus case management services. And it's a proven model for helping people experience homelessness, achieve housing stability. This rental assistance piece we often call housing voucher. It's essentially helping folks sort of rent an apartment out in the community and subsidizing their rent. So we often shorthand it as housing vouchers, but what we're really talking about is supportive housing, that proven mix of rental assistance and case management services that helps folks exit homelessness permanently. And next slide. There are two models for supportive housing that have really emerged as the best practices for helping people experiencing homelessness achieve permanent housing stability. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those two models on the next slide. The first is permanent supportive housing, and there should be some bullets here. You can just go ahead and bring them all up. Permanent supportive housing is not time limited. So there's not a time limit on how long people can receive permanent supportive housing for. And the reason for this is it's really targeted to people that are dealing with significant disabilities that can undermine their housing stability without long-term support. And that does include mental health, substance abuse, and physical disabilities. Rapid rehousing, you can go ahead to the next slide. Rapid rehousing is a different model. It is time limited. Most rapid rehousing programs provide assistance for up to 1 to 2 years. And they're really targeted to folks who are able to sustain housing on their own after 1 to 2 years. So many times these are folks that are working or are not working but would like to get back into the workforce, or so are able to increase their income enough to afford housing on their own. And you can go to the next slide. This shows you the average length of stay for these two types of model, permanent housing and rapid rehousing programs here in Albuquerque. And this doesn't reflect all of our programs. This reflects city-funded programs, and this is for folks that were housed in these programs between November 1, 2019 and October 31st, 2020. I thought it was interesting to see, for permanent supportive housing, which again, there's not a time limit on how long people can stay. The average length of stay is this just under 1,000 days for families and just over 1,100 days for single adults. So although there's not a time limit, folks don't stay forever. People do move on to other housing options, but without that arbitrary time limit, they're able to stay until they have some level of stability. And then rapid rehousing, which again is up to 1 to 2 years. The average length of stay was just over 300 days for families and a little over 200 days for single adults. And most of our rapid rehousing programs are actually set up as 2-year programs. So again, interesting to see that many people don't actually need the full 2 years before they're able to exit successfully into permanent housing on their own, or maintain permanent housing on their own, I should say. All right, next slide. So that was our little overview about what supportive housing is. And now we'd like to move into talking about our plan for allocating the $2 million that was appropriated in the FY21 budget for housing vouchers. And this is non-reoccurring dollars that was new non-reoccurring dollars that was allocated as part of the FY21 budget. Next slide. Our goal for these funds is to provide rapid rehousing, and you can go ahead and just bring all the text up. I didn't realize it had the animation on it when I wrote this slide. We want to provide rapid rehousing for up to 12 months to approximately 135 households. We decided to set this up as a rapid rehousing program because it is non-reoccurring funding. So we know we have a certain pot of money available for a certain amount of time. That's a really good fit for rapid rehousing. We've wanted to focus on 12 months to help really house as many folks as we could and get back on their feet in a 12-month period. And we estimate that's about 135 households that we'll be able to serve. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Our strategy is multi-pronged because this is a heavy lift, really getting this $2 million out into our community and housing folks as quickly as we can. We want to use existing partnerships with experienced supportive housing providers. We want to engage new partners that serve vulnerable people, including young adults. And I think there's one more bullet on this slide. We also want, what we're looking at are setting these up as 18-month contracts. We know we're going to contract with folks. There's going to be a little bit of startup time. Some will have to hire new staff, some won't. It's going to take a little bit of time to bring people into the program, even those that are ready to go on day one. It just takes time to like help folks find an apartment and move into housing. And then we want to be able to provide that 12 months of rental assistance. So we feel like the best way to set this up where we're really helping people achieve housing stability is through an 18-month contract with some of our nonprofit providers. And then the next slide shows more detail on who we're hoping to contract with or planning to contract with. We essentially have identified 3 target populations that we feel like are a good fit for these funds and are really in need of this rapid rehousing support. One are folks that are staying at the city's wellness motels. We have the Family and Community Services with our partners have established 2 wellness motels. These are providing non-congregate emergency shelter for people experiencing homelessness who are at high risk of COVID complications because of age or underlying health conditions. Our second wellness motel is also serving families with children. Most of the folks staying at the wellness motels would be staying at the Westside Emergency Housing Center, which is problematic for them because they're at high risk of COVID complications. So really a congregate setting can be very dangerous. Or for families, we felt like families are not being well served at the Westside shelter right now. Motel or internet access is difficult. It's harder to keep in touch with the Title I staff. So we felt like these families were better served in town. We want to target a good chunk of these supportive housing money to help folks move out of the wellness motel into permanent housing. And we estimate we can serve about 55 households with $1.13 million. Our goal is that these folks at the wellness motel never go back to a congregate shelter setting, that they move from the wellness motel into permanent housing. We've also want to target a good chunk of these funds towards transition age youth. These are ages 16 to 24. We have several transitional living programs in our community that are serving young people. And those young people are ready to move out of the transitional living program and live on their own, but they need some support. They need a little bit of help paying the rent, and they need some supportive services to really learn how to be good tenants and be able to be good tenants. And so we see this as a really good fit for these rapid rehousing funds. So we're estimating we can serve about 68 households for $720,000. And finally, we also know there's other vulnerable adults out there, many of whom are disconnected from services, who are often engaging with some of our smaller, very community-based providers. And we see this as an opportunity to also contract with some of those smaller providers and be able to help them begin to learn how to do housing vouchers, build their capacity, but also serve some of these vulnerable folks. I know there was also some conversation at previous council meetings about using some of these funds for motel vouchers as well. And what has come through our conversation with potential agencies to contract with is that they would envision using a small portion of these funds in a contract to provide motel vouchers for folks so that folks have a safe place to be while they're looking for an apartment, which is a great fit for this model. One of the things that can really slow down someone getting into housing is just that they don't have a stable place to be while they're looking for an apartment. So that's a great fit for this model and helps keep people safe. So that totals the 2 million and approximately 135 people, which I do want to stress is an approximate number. I'm sorry, 135 households. That is an approximate number. The number of people that and households that will be served will depend on the size of those households and how much of their income they're contributing towards the rent. And then next slide. So some of the considerations that we just want everyone to be aware of as we kind of move forward with this plan, if it's approved by council. One is that because of the emergency conditions that we are in right now as a community, we are going to utilize the emergency procurement part of our procurement regs, and we are not going out to RFP. We need to get folks into housing. as soon as possible. That is the safest place for people to be right now. So one of the nice things about that, of course, is that it really expedites the timeline in terms of entering into contracts with our nonprofit providers. Our goal is to have contracts executed. This is a typo, I just saw it, or to have contracts executed by January 2021, not 2020. We do anticipate for some agencies or some of these contracts, there will be a little bit of startup time that we need to account for. Some are planning to use existing staff, which will make things quicker. Others will need to hire some new staff to provide those sort of supportive services, so their startup time might be a little bit longer. In any case, as we're working on developing contracts with folks, we're going to be asking people to begin lining up potential participants so that as soon as that contract's executed, they can begin working with folks to get them housed. We also know that it takes time for people to find an apartment, particularly folks with eviction or criminal histories, and many of the folks who are served through this program will have problematic eviction or criminal histories. So there's also a little time there that we just all need to be aware of as people go out and look for an apartment. Finally, one of the things we've been thinking through is the complexity of operating these programs over multiple fiscal years. Providing at least 12 months of rental assistance is good practice. We know that folks need at least that amount of assistance to get back on their feet and be stable. And so we've been exploring the idea of establishing a supportive housing fund with using these general fund dollars that are allocated to supportive housing that does not revert at the end of the fiscal year. That could make sort of setting up these contracts in a way that really supports best practice a little bit more feasible. And that concludes my presentation. Carol, was there anything you would like to add before we open it up to questions?
No, thank you, Lisa, very much. No, I think Councilor Davis, will hand it back to you and the councilors for questions.
Thanks, Madam Director and Deputy Director. We appreciate it very much. I see some counselors lining up here, and we'll go there just a second. Let me just add and say, I appreciate it very much. This is something that we identified during the budget process that we needed to move forward more quickly, and an opportunity that really was needed to be filled in the community. Y'all have done a lot of work. I appreciate I've seen a lot of the back end work that you're developing to bring in some of these new providers. I've talked to a couple of them that have already heard from you and are excited to begin doing some of this work. So I know it's ready to go. And so we're going to figure out the process to be sure that the council sort of consents to this plan or has an opportunity to weigh in. But I think this is the right direction. And for what it's worth, I appreciate that some of this money could be out in the community in just a few weeks. So, or, by the first of the year, hopefully. So first up, we have Councilor Gibson, then Councilor Bassan, and then we'll open it up to any other councilors. So Madam Vice President, Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to extend my congratulations and gratitude to you both and the department for, giving this your priorities and coming up with what sounds to be a very logical and workable plan. So, so I wanted to say that. I do have one little question, and whenever I hear household, and I kind of wonder, how are we defining household? Is it the same one that I hear from Albuquerque Housing Authority, or is it something, do we have a different idea of what a household is?
President Davis, Councilor Gibson, when I use the term household, I just mean it as like sort of household unit, the people that are living in that household. So it could be 2 single adults, it could be a mom with 2 children, could be a dad and a grandma and a child, but just the group of people that are living together in that apartment. And I use household really instead of people to kind of give a sense of the number of vouchers that are being provided.
So then, Mr. President, if I may, just one quick follow-up. So then it could be like perhaps 4 friends, or does there have to be a relation, a blood relation or legal relation?
President Davis, Councilor Gibson, that is an excellent question. In general, our supportive housing programs are required to serve a unit that presents together as a family, and we don't we don't label what is a family or isn't a family. But I would say it would be highly unusual for four friends to sort of present together as a family or be served as one unit. That just generally doesn't happen. But we also don't want to be we don't feel like it's on us to be prescriptive about what a family is or isn't.
Well, I would suggest one more, Mr. President, I'm sorry. One last thing. I would suggest that if I had been living either on the street or maybe in interim housing shelters and things like that, I would look for a support group, and I would consider my support group maybe my family. So maybe not a blood relation, not even a legal relation. So anyway, I don't mean to, kind of get into the weeds about this, but just it comes to mind every time I hear household or family. So thank you again for everything that you're doing.
And Councilor Davis and Councilor Gibson, I wanted to add, and I can't put my hands on the numbers, but just to illustrate that household and how we are using a low barrier. And I do agree, it's people supporting each other. At our current Wellness 2 hotel, out of 98 rooms, we have something like 140, don't quote me on this, but it's that many more people because of these households there in the room. And we have quite a few families over there now. We have worked with Title I to identify families that are in living in cars, unfortunately. I mean, and so those family units, again, we never ask, give us your birth certificate, all that, but those are people that are staying together. And we have seen, you can just see that hands down in what we're seeing in the Wellness Hotel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering, is anybody, and I don't think I saw it in there, but just in case, is anybody that's suffered any kind of evictions that have happened this year relevant to any of this, or are they being assisted with this particular program?
Councilor Davis and Councilor Bassan, let me start by answering. Now, these aren't geared toward people that are currently housed and being evicted. Now, we have a lot of work going on eviction right now. And that started with, I think it was Councilor Pena and the council that supported the 300,000 plus 200 more thousand for that 500,000 for CARES Act. And we recently actually added 200,000 to that because we're spending that down quickly. And that's through our health and social service centers, as well as through CDBG, CARES Act, another $1 million through Lisa's shop that she's working diligently to get that out, that'll be available to the community as early as next week. The third thing I'll just add, because we are working very closely with the Department of Equity and Inclusion, the Office of Equity and Inclusion here at the city. We have a Monday meeting weekly to look at how we're mapping this, that we're reaching all parts of our community. And there was a meeting last week with our fellow partners at the county and the MFA, looking at all the different pots of money on eviction prevention and how we can collaborate and coordinate. So that was probably a very long-winded answer, but the simple answer is this particular strategy isn't focused on eviction, but we've got lots of work going on eviction. And I might ask Deputy Duval if there's anything to add to that on eviction, because we're spending a fair amount of time on eviction right now.
President Davis, Councilor Bassan, the only thing I would add is we do have significant amount of community development block grant CDBG money that was made available under the CARES Act, which we can use for eviction prevention. So we have another funding source that is available to really focus on helping folks stay housed that are having trouble paying their rent.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick follow-up, just to say thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that. I was in my head making the assumption that it's not going to be used towards any action because of the exact answers you gave, but I am happy to see that this is going to those who have been suffering from homelessness for other reasons, not just particularly COVID related. So thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Borrego. Next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. President, rather. I'd really like to thank Carol for the work that she and her staff do. I had the pleasure of going up to the West Side Shelter this week and delivering 1,200 pair of socks, along with people from Cottonwood Mall and Sam's Club and some other folks. And the need is so great. And I just can't even emphasize that enough. And I did get lost, by the way, on the way getting up there. And I've been there before, but you know, it's way out there. And the people who are out there, I didn't have an opportunity to talk to them because of COVID, but I do know that, you know, it's a need that our community is just, I mean, it's a growing need that every day grows more and more. And, you know, I ask the people who are watching this, if you can give a little extra during this time, especially during Thanksgiving and Christmas, because those are very hard emotional times for people. And it's even harder now with COVID. But if you can give a little extra out of your pocket, there is a huge need. I'm going to embarrass Lisa a little bit because I just want to thank Lisa for all she's done. I know all of us had a great concern about the vouchers. Lisa used to work for me as an intern. And I feel like a proud mom, you know, because Lisa has really gone very far and beyond, and I'm really, really proud of her. So thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you, Councilor Borrego.
And Councilor Davis and Councilor Borrego, thank you for the opportunity to partner with you and Cottonwood Mall and give our 2 cents about the value of socks for people who are homeless that are constantly walking and in the winter. And those socks were just so greatly appreciated. So we really appreciate that partnership, and to have our partners over at Cottonwood Mall also be aware of the needs of some of our most vulnerable folks in our community. So I really appreciate the partnership. Thank you.
And I would just add, Cottonwood Mall has just initiated a food drive also. So for people who are out in the community, just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, we have Councilors Benton and then Councilor Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Pierce and Deputy Director Uval, appreciate this presentation. It looks like a good plan. We've talked about this before. We know that the biggest challenge is a regular income stream that we can count on from year to year. And this seems like a smart way of dealing with this one-time appropriation. And I appreciate that. I was talking to another veteran of city government. I guess I'm considering myself that at this point. And we agreed that the leadership of the department this time around has really been great. So you are appreciated, and thanks for putting this together. And I think it will be strongly supported.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Senate.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. I was curious in this funding, because I know we talked a lot about our vulnerable families as well, considering how many families actually go through the West Side Shelter. And thank you for that presentation and meeting with me on this discussion. So I was curious, you know, in terms of this voucher too, is there also connections for Wi-Fi so that the kids can continue going to school? Also the transition age and youth 16 to 24, is it also provided that they get internet or any services and connectivity, part of that case management work?
Councilor Davis and Councilor Sena, just to build off of what Deputy Uval mentioned. So right now we usually have a family pod out at the West Side. Right now we don't have a family pod, so we could spread out the adults, the men and the women there. And so where families now go is Wellness 2. So, and that allowed for better and more stable and stronger Wi-Fi connection. We're working very closely with APS Title I, which is why we really had quite, as disheartening as it is, influx of families this weekend. Those families were probably in places that families shouldn't be housed, like a car. And so the Wi-Fi is stronger there at Wellness too. And then they have access to the tutoring and other things provided through Title I. In terms of the vulnerable youth 16 to 24, what's really great about the plan that Lisa and team have put together is that we are working with existing strong youth providers of that vulnerable age. And so they've already got students identified. They're either in transitional housing or they're ready to go. So they're already in places where they're getting the support they need, whether it's Wi-Fi or services. And so we're very excited. And why I don't know if we included it in our presentation, but of those 135 households, it's almost 8 different organizations that we're able to work with to really kind of spread this far and wide and to reach different youth that are working with different organizations.
And Councillor or President Davis, Councillor Sena, and once folks are housed, the case management services will definitely include helping folks get or stay connected to the internet, so kids can continue with their schooling, or for younger kids or adults that they have that important connection as well. But that case management services will really be all about what do folks need to be stably housed and connected to resources in their community. And of course, right now that definitely includes internet.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Seeing no other questions, Director Pierce, I just want to follow up to something I heard you say, and then we'll move to our next presentation. But you mentioned that coordinating with Title I services, y'all had started taking referrals there. Do you know about approximately how many Title I family referrals that Family and Community has assisted with housing recently? Or if not, maybe if you could have someone help us identify that. It's just, certainly it's something we all want to focus on, and you all have done a great job for, and a metric we want to monitor. If we have to pick folks to start housing first, it's certainly families and kids who need that support to stay engaged.
Yes, Councillor Davis, we can follow up with that. I don't have a number, and nor do I have a number. I'm looking, we get a census every day, and I didn't detail out how many families are over there at Wellness 2 as of today. But definitely one of our key contractors that of the 8 that we're talking with are very good with families, and they'll be working with them, and we can keep the council posted.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you both, and certainly look forward to seeing that plan in action and getting the money back out into the community as quickly as possible. Thank you both for taking your time, and congratulations. Thank you to the administration for making that a priority and working with us. Next up, I think somewhere upstairs is David from the mayor's office, who has a presentation on volunteerism. I think I see him.
Hello. All right, looks like there's the PowerPoint. Good. Thank you, Mr. President and other councilors, for giving me the opportunity to present today. Good afternoon. My name is David Chenet, and I'm the Civic Engagement Manager with the city. The Office of Civic Engagement was created in June of last year, and we recently released our first annual report. Today, I'll take a couple of minutes to share some of the highlights. Next slide, please. So first, I'd like to introduce you to our team. So on the left, we have Nick Botero, who's the Civic Engagement Coordinator. And on the right, we have Mariah Harrison. She's the Nonprofit and Philanthropy Coordinator. We also have a strong group of 6 VISTA volunteers who staff our office. VISTAs are full-time paid volunteers who are funded through a national service grant. So the Office of Civic Engagement has 4 main pillars, which are supporting and building educational partnerships, bringing residents to the table to have an active voice in decision-making through community conversations, formalizing and finding new ways to support nonprofit philanthropy. But our primary function is to enhance support and grow volunteer engagement at city departments and with external partners. Next slide, please. So one of the first things we did after we started was to implement a new volunteer engagement platform called 1ABQ Volunteers. The new platform allowed us to centralize volunteer intake, where new volunteers can sign the required forms, submit background checks, track hours, and much more. The centralized process helped us streamline volunteer recruitment and management across all city departments, and also helps to reduce city liability as well. Additionally, the volunteer engagement platform is also an asset for any non-city entity that engages volunteers. So, if you're a faith-based organization, a nonprofit, or a business, you can use the platform for free to recruit and manage volunteers. So this past year, over 2,400 people signed up to volunteer. The volunteers recorded over 34,000 hours, which is valued at approximately $840,000. We've also seen over 280 organizations post over 500 opportunities. Next slide, please. So when COVID-19 hit, we quickly pivoted and made the volunteer platform into a pandemic relief resource for volunteering. In typical Albuquerque fashion, over 1,400 new volunteers signed up for COVID-related volunteer opportunities. And since the pandemic started, we've tracked over 2,500 hours. So tracking COVID relief volunteer hours is especially important because the total hours can be submitted as part of a FEMA public assistance grant for reimbursement, which so far is valued at over $650,000. So this money can be used to help Albuquerque recover when the pandemic subsides. One example of a safe COVID-related volunteer initiative was spearheaded by one of our VISTA volunteers, Kelsey Kilbride. And then you can see she's in the middle of the picture on the right there. Kelsey created a partnership with the Little Free Libraries National Office to help residents build those little library boxes that you've all seen in your neighborhoods. And thanks to funding from City Council, the Albuquerque Woodworkers Association built 21 library boxes that will be deployed in underserved areas over the next couple months. Next slide, please. So we support volunteerism in the greater Albuquerque area, but as you likely know, the city department level volunteer programs like the foster animal program at Animal Welfare and the Senior Corps programs with the Department of Senior Affairs have been doing the heavy lifting for years. So as you can see, city departments reported engaging over 5,700 volunteers who performed over 260,000 hours, which is a lot by any standard. Next slide, please. So, and finally, in closing, city department volunteers perform many critical services that are essential to the work that most departments do. We believe that equates to about 120 full-time employees, which would otherwise be paid. Volunteers help address many city budget shortfalls, enhance programs, provide services, and really help to build community. So that concludes my presentation today. I encourage you to take a look at the full report that can be found on the volunteer homepage on the city website. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Mr. Sinead, thank you. Thank you for all that hard work, and congratulations for putting that together with your team. Councilors, open floor, any questions? I was going to say, it's his first presentation. We can't let him go without questions. Councilor Jones, and then Councilor Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. President. And it isn't actually a question. I just have to brag a little bit. My husband is a very active member of an Albuquerque Woodworkers Association, and he is the one who organized and got all of these people, not just gentlemen, I might add. There are several female woodworkers, and they did put together all of these little free libraries to be distributed by the city. So thank you, Mr. Shin, for showing that slide of them. They were, and now they're working on another project to also be helping some of the city, a very interesting project this time that we're not going to talk about because it's a little more touchy, but they will be helping some more homeless and underprivileged people with some wood projects. So thank you, Mr. President, for letting me give that pitch.
Now you have us all curious, Councilor Jones. We have Councilor Gibson and Councilor Sutton.
Well, that's hard to follow that because now I really want to know what you're talking about. but I'll put the pressure on later on. So, Mr. Shane, I just want to tell you thank you also for doing this. I think this is one of the most important things that a municipality can do. One of the most frustrating things I think that scenarios is having someone come up and say, I want to help. What can I do? And not really being able to channel them, and use their, their talents or expertise or whatever they're interested in doing that. So I think this is great what you're doing, and the numbers certainly bear that out. So good for you. Congratulations, and thank you for doing it.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilor Gibson. It's truly been amazing to see the amount of people that just really want to give, and with COVID, it's really been amazing to see the whole community kind of rally around each other.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, ma'am. Councilor Senna.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. My question, and I would like to say that I met a lot of our volunteers, especially through the Senior Affairs Program, and I really appreciate them for everything that they were doing and helping out, distributing masks, distributing goods when we could. Anyways, my question, I actually got to meet an AmeriCorps volunteer and a lot of students who actually wanted to join Peace Corps, but with COVID, they haven't been able to go to their countries that they were selected to travel to. So, how much does AmeriCorps partner with you all? Or, are they part of that program? Do they log the same hours? Because I met a volunteer that was, pretty much triple dipping. We were using him to do the outreach for our business grant, for our Wi-Fi resources. So just curious where that plays into the volunteer program.
Yeah, so that's a major part of our program. The Vistas I mentioned earlier are AmeriCorps Vistas, and it's a national service grant from the Corporation for National and Community Service. I actually worked for them for the 4 years previous to starting here with the city. The mission is to fight poverty. We have 6 of them in our office, and 2 of them had actually signed up to be Peace Corps members when COVID hit. One of them came home early from Mexico. So there's definitely a connection between Peace Corps and national service. So that plays a large role in our office's capacity to support volunteerism. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And excuse me, David, thank you. And I've known Nick a number of years through a number of different roles, and he was super excited to take on this job, and I've enjoyed seeing him do that work. So excited to see you all sharing the rest of this with everybody else. So thank you and congratulations for your work. Keep it up. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilors, seeing no other questions or items for proclamations and presentations, we will now move on to general public comment. For those of you following along, for general public comment, we are making Spanish interpretation available in consecutive mode for those who need it. This means that any speaker requesting interpretation will have to pause about every 3 sentences to allow for an interpreter to have her turn to interpret. This is very important because if you go on for too long without a pause, the interpreter may not be able to relay everything you've said. As was stated earlier, live public comment is being taken today, and we have folks signed up to speak. But also, we also received written comments that were distributed to our councilors earlier today. Members of the public will be able to address the city council if they have signed up for live public comment per the rules published on our council agenda for these meetings. Members of the public will be moved from the Zoom waiting room, and it looks like probably already are. Once we begin our public comment period, you will remain muted until you're called upon to speak. I'll go through the rest of the rules once we get to that place. Mr. Moya, our Zoom moderator, has moved everybody in, and so let me go through those ground rules now that we have everyone. Each participant has up to 1.5 minutes to present. Again, we extend that for folks who need a simultaneous translation. Comments are to be addressed to the councilors only and through the council president. In other words, it's not a Q&A or a debate. We simply want to hear your comment and your input. Any disruptive comment will result in removal from the Zoom meeting room. There is a 1.5 minute time limit. The time starts when you begin speaking. And I'm going to yield the floor to Mr. Moya, our Zoom moderator, who will call you each by one and monitor our time. Mr. Moya, will you recognize our first speaker, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Our first speaker is Larry Sontag. Please go ahead and mute yourself. Feel free to turn your video. And Mr. Sontag will be followed by Ore Dominguez.
Good afternoon, President Davis and members of the council. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the New Mexico Business Coalition concerning the proposed ordinance that would be dealing with mandated paid time off. You've heard in the past that our opposition is not to people having paid time off, and sick leave is important. As you know, the pandemic has certainly demonstrated that. What's also important to note is that the federal government has mandated and provided the opportunity for 80 hours of paid time off with an additional 10 weeks of paid time off. When you put that on top of the PPP protection, payroll protection loans, and all of the numerous things that government entities are trying to do to help businesses, it's not easy for small businesses that don't have a huge HR department to keep up with all of the paperwork involved. I want to encourage you to focus on other things than mandating more regulations on small businesses. There's a lot of other things that you can and should be focusing on. Government doing one-size-fits-all mandates that have to do with important relationships between an employer and employees do not work. The difference between what's important to a baby boomer as far as paid time off and a Gen X or a millennial is huge. If you haven't been dealing with employees, you may not realize that, but a one-size-fits-all ordinance is not going to help the people that you say that you're trying to help. We encourage you to focus your areas or your attention on other areas and do not proceed with more mandated regulations on small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. It's good to see you. Thank you so much. Mr. Moya next.
Our next speaker is Ore Dominguez, followed by Francesco Artist. Ms. Dominguez, please feel free to unmute yourself and turn your video, and your 1.5 minutes will begin when you start speaking.
I am asking the City Council not to accept the Race, History, and Healing Project recommendations, which are fueled by the institutionalized, systemic, anti-Spanish Catholic racism in our schools, universities, newspapers, and even the City of Albuquerque's website. I attended all the sessions of the RHHP, and I quickly realized they were using a form of the Delphi method of community control and manipulation to obtain a predetermined outcome. The administrator was given relevant documentation on Don Juan de Oñate, which he chose to hide from the participants, the majority of whom were uninformed views. The city facilitators were unprofessional and did not follow their own rules. They were constantly talking over or trying to stop speech from the Cuatro Centenario supporters. The RHH facilitators refused to talk about the Cuatro Centenario project as a whole memorial by 3 artists, instead targeting their racist attack on Sonny Rivera, Don Juan de Oñate, and La Jornada. The Albuquerque board did not follow proper procedures when they blindly agreed to pass the recommendations on to the City Council, having had no involvement in the RHHP process or its validity. Thank you.
Mr. Dominguez, thank you.
Our next speaker is Francesco Artist. Please unmute yourself. Feel free to turn your video, and your 1.5 minutes will begin when you start speaking. Sorry, you are still muted, sir, if you want to unmute yourself.
There it is. President Davis, members of City Council, I've come to learn one of the largest sanctioned lynchings in American history as a result of cancel culture's aggressive targeting of public art lately. At the turn of the century, a high-profile murder of a New Orleans chief of police led to 11 Italian immigrants to be falsely accused of that crime. When none of them were found guilty, the quote unquote respectable members of society organized a mostly peaceful protest that led to hundreds of them breaking into the city jail and lynched all of those innocent Italian Americans. That horrific event brought Italy and America to the brink of war. As a means to bring about peace and healing, by presidential proclamation, the very first National Columbus Day celebration came into being in America. While many Civil War monuments were erected as passive-aggressive reminders to Black Americans during the civil rights that they were still considered less than, quite the opposite was happening with Columbus monuments after that mass lynching. Those were very public and powerful showings of peaceful protest against horrific racial injustice. I reject anti-immigrant violence and dangerous anti-immigrant rhetoric. The New Mexico state seal symbolizes that we hold on to Spanish, Mexican, and indigenous traditions. The American eagle, with its outstretched wings, watchful eye, and arrows in its talons, protecting, shielding our Mexican eagle. While the grow as it goes motto, proudly etched for all to see. As we try to learn from the past and plan for the future, we need to figure out how to live.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired.
America is either a melting pot or it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Artist.
Mr. President, that concludes public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Moya, and we'll give you all just a minute as we move those commenters out back into our waiting room, and then we'll proceed to the next section of our. Councilors, next up are economic development discussions. There are none scheduled for this evening's meeting. Next up, we have administration Q&A. Councilors didn't submit any questions ahead of time, but we always want to be sure there aren't any last-minute questions. Councilors, going once, going twice. Councilor Bassan, I thought you might do that. I see Councilor Gibson as well. So we'll do Bassan and Gibson and see where that takes us. Councilor and Borrego. So Bassan, Gibson, and Borrego. Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm wondering if we can hear a little bit from the administration on what the working group that has been created to address speeding and drag racing, and a little bit more information about that we read in the newspaper.
Thank you. It's from the administration somewhere upstairs. I know we have some folks who can weigh in. Do we have the administration from the mayor's conference room?
Yeah. Good afternoon, councilors. Councilor Bassan, I do believe we have someone here. Cecilia Barker is, I think, or Cicely Barker, I think, is going to join the call to give some information.
Commander, welcome. Good to see you.
You too. Mr. President, Councilor Bassan, we do have a working group put together. We are working on some education that's going to go out to our police department, meaning that the traffic division is going to be having a video which will provide information on what citations can be issued as far as state statutes go, specific to muffler and noise ordinance violations. Commander Brown with the Valley Area Command and Soch Tortoise, we're also working on education, a public service announcement that will go out to the community. It will include officers and their experiences on scenes of traffic accidents, including fatal accidents. Along with that education, the traffic division has put together a 3-month calendar where they will specifically be addressing speeding in areas that have been identified, such as Paseo and Coors, Tramway and Eubank, Montgomery and Lomas, Unser and Gibson to Paseo. They'll be working those TAC plans twice a week in addition to the area commands. The traffic division is also working as part of the anti-crime operation, and there is speeding enforcement that is included in that as well. And we'll have a more in-depth update that will be provided at the end of this week.
Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you for that, because we're reading about it and I didn't know we had anything in the works for this. So this is good to hear. And if you can, once you have an update at the end of this week, if maybe we can get an update at the next council meeting so that we can all be on the same page as to what's happening and the progress that's being made between now and then, Commander. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bassan. And Commander, before we let you go, if I could, I want to follow up on that and then see if other councilors have a follow-up on that question before we go to other councilors with new ones. But Commander, thank you. And it was good to see that release. And we've talked about this plan for a couple of council meetings now and more than a year, in fact, in some areas. It's exciting to see APD focusing on it. I wanted to focus very quickly on the issue around modified vehicles and illegally modified vehicles, particularly as it relates to noise. A lot of intersection there with the drag racing and some of the show-off vehicles. Can you tell us a little bit about the strategy for that, or what challenges APD has in enforcing that? Do we have the right laws on the books, or does officers have the right technical equipment to identify those? But as part, and is that part of this plan, or is that something we need to visit in a different route?
Mr. President, that is something that the Traffic Division is working on, looking at the laws that are currently in place and going to the legislator further down the road. Right now, officers in the field don't have the equipment to enforce that violation. So the training video will include the Traffic Division explaining to officers how they would make contact with individuals who have modified mufflers, the questions that they would ask so that they can meet the requirements of the state statute, and that would be included in the education for the officers. And that is something that we are continuing to work on.
Thank you, Commander. I just want to note, I remember from my old days as a cop how hard it was to enforce some of those rules, and there are lots of them, but I appreciate the extra focus on it. As a reminder, I think this council showed a lot of interest in trying to help with that regard. And so if we find that the state statute is insufficient, I think there's certainly some interest here at the council to visit that on a local level and perhaps create a better model and a more easily enforceable one that the state could look at. So please keep us updated. I'd love to see more about that. Councilors, before we move on to another topic, I just want to be sure while we have the commander here, just wave your hand if you have a question for APD Commander. Councilor Bassan, we're back to you, then Councilor Borrego, then Councilor Pena. Then we'll move on to our next set of questions. So Councilor Bassan, Borrego, Pena to APD.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commander, if there's going to be, when we hear an update, if there's going to be any kind of goals that are set for officers, I think that's another thing that I would be interested in learning, because I don't think that there might not be any progress if there's not goals to be met per se, as far as, making sure that we do educate, but then also implement. So I would like to see that too, if possible, next time. And thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
President.
Councilor Borrego, then Councilor Pena on this topic, and then we'll move on, and Councilor Senate. So Councilor Borrego.
Commander, it's always great to see you. First of all, I want to thank the councilors that pushed to get this on the radar of APD. In reading the paper and seeing specific areas that were outlined, I just wanted, and Commander already knows about this, but I just want to remind them about the little stretch that we have here between, I guess it's golf course and on Paseo, and then Unser, and of course McMahon. And just these, because we have some pretty far reaching stretches that don't have lights. And the commander already knows about this because I talk to her like every week, but I didn't see those listed in the paper. So I just wanted to remind her about that and remind the task force about some of those areas.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. President, Councilor Borrego, the Traffic Division also reached out to each individual area commander so that they can identify specific areas within each area command that they would like to see addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for being here, Commander Barker. You know, I just wanted to say, kind of reiterate what Councilor Borrego and Bassan were saying, is that we really appreciate the administration, you know, getting on this. I know it's been talked about here recently in the news. There's a few of us councilors, I think Councilor Bassan, Councilor Sena, Councilor Benton and myself, who actually have been meeting since I think early October to talk about this. So, you know, I just really, I think you've probably heard from the chief about it. So I just want to make sure that I know it's exciting that we're really trying to get something done and really being proactive about it and jumping on it. But, you know, I just want to make sure that as we proceed, that we look at, you know, the strategies that we were trying to get in place initially as we move forward. You know, when I read the article in the paper yesterday, I seen that the mayor, you know, he talked about some of the strategies he was doing. And then when I thought it was kind of ironic because some of the areas that were identified, I was kind of the one that put the committee together. And then some of the streets that were identified, not a lot of areas in the Southwest area were even mentioned, kind of like what Councilor Borrego is saying. So when we highlight these roads, you know, our constituents begin to hear about them and think that, you know, well, these are the specific roads that maybe us as councilors gave, and that's not actually the case. So I just want to make sure if you put out streets, decide to put out streets again and name those streets, that maybe talk to each of the councilors from their district to make sure that those are the streets. And, you know, again, like you to participate in the meetings that we've been having. In terms of the speeding, there's a kind of a strategy behind it in terms of education being one of the number one, the forefront issue, and then talking about enforcement, which is obviously necessary, and then us looking at policies or fines related to what we can do to address, you know, the long-term goal of addressing speeding in our community. So thank you, and just want to make sure we all work together.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. And councilors, anything else for Commander Barker? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Sena, you had your hand. I'm sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I think Councilor Pena pretty much said what I was hoping to convey, but I also wanted to say that in the short time that I got to venture outside of my house over the weekend, I did see many officers along cores, many of them on their motorcycles, many of them pulling drivers over. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And, you know, I do hope that we continue to see some of that enforcement and education and, you know, some of the areas highlighted, but also, you know, again, there's that area by the actually West Side Shelter that has been doing, you know, a lot of drag racing out there as well. I haven't been able to drive out there to check, but, you know, it's part of this working group that we're having these discussions and highlighting some of the areas. So I just wanted to say thank you, and, you know, looking forward to continue to work with our council's working group, as well as to hear what the mayor's working group has to say.
Councilor Pena. Councilor, I'm sorry, we still have you muted. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. President. Thank you. I also wanted to add that I know Councilor Benton keeps talking about the noise ordinance and, you know, the thing with the mufflers. So I just want to make sure that as we address this, that I think we've been very clear, and thank you for clarifying that, Councilor Sena, in our council working group, that we actually, you know, we feel that it's important. We just want to make sure that we are not criminalizing our youth in the community in terms of that. So I don't know if as we move forward, maybe we address that as a separate issue. But right now, I think the committee was pulled together to really talk about speeding that's happening in our communities. And then obviously, you know, the modified mufflers is an issue, but how we address that, we have to tread lightly as we move forward with how we just make sure that we don't criminalize youth. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilors, last call for questions for APD on this topic before we move on. Thank you very much, Commander. And perhaps maybe you can wait in the wings for us just a minute. You never know how these things go. But counselors, we had other counselors who were signed up for other questions and discussion. And the next I had up was Counselor Gibson and then Counselor Counselor Borrego. So we'll start with Counselor Gibson and see where this takes us. Counselor.
Thank you. Yeah, just follow me. So this is just a question, if there's someone present who can address it, but if not, more of a statement and a hope I'm going to put out there that that we can achieve some advertisement of the tenants' rights that was sent to us by Ms. Karen Myers from the city's Consumer Financial Protection Initiative. And I found this to be very useful for people who are renting apartments or houses here in Albuquerque. And it's in several different languages, English, Spanish, of course, and I don't know what the other languages are. But so my hope is this is really great work to do. But it doesn't do much in just email boxes. So I forwarded it to some people I think who could be, would like to know about this. But I guess I'm wondering if the city, if the administration has a plan of getting this information out into the hands of renters or people who might find themselves in a situation where, they may be looking at eviction. I almost brought this up during the presentation with from the Department of Family and Community Services, but I thought this is more of a legal thing. So I apologize if I'm bringing it up at the wrong time. So is there anybody from the administration who's aware of this, who can speak to it?
Mr. President and Councilor Gibson, I apologize for you. We had Carol stay on the line to give you a little more detailed information. I know that they've been working on some of that information. We'll be happy to get that to you all before the end of the week.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And our city attorney just put his hand up. I think that he means.
Mr. Aguilar.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, and Councilor Gibson. We're happy to sit down with you as well. Karen's part of our crew in our office, and I know she's doing a lot of work as well. And so we're happy to sit down and touch base, at our next session. And certainly we can work on a presentation depending on, what Karen's work entails. So.
Okay, thank you.
We'll let that. Okay. Steve, I think your dog wants your attention. Next.
That was the assistant city attorney giving the attorney some advice.
I was telling them.
I thought it was a rubber ducky.
No, it's the police oversight. I was telling the folks in the police oversight board meeting last week. It was his birthday a couple weeks ago, and when the sun starts going down, then he's usually good throughout the day. But I'll keep the mute on. Apologies.
It's great. We weren't quite sure what you were doing over there, so just checking.
Working on the hunting calls, right?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Gibson. Councilor Borrego, I think you had another topic for question. No, we're covered. Great. Councilors, any other questions for the administration? We have Mr. Real here, and I think I see Sanjay there, so we don't want to let him go this easily if there's anything else. Seeing none, we'll move on to our action items. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be back with you soon, I'm sure. Next up, communications and introductions. Just for folks following along at home, what we've done, and we'll talk about this in a minute again, we are intending to not have to not exercise our option to have the December 21st council meeting, which would normally be our end of year council meeting right before Christmas holiday. Instead, we're going to try to consolidate all of these last minute agenda items into our next meeting in 2 weeks. For that reason, there are a number of changes to the letter of introduction that will move some legislation around to ensure that we get a chance to cover it at that meeting. And so Oh, I'm sorry. First of all, we have to do the journal, as our clerk is kindly reminding me in my ear. Councilor Gibson, I think you have a motion.
Thank you. Mr. President, I will move approval of the letter of introduction.
I think you're moving the letter of, I'm sorry, the journal. I
sorry.
jumped ahead. I'm sorry, but
I got ahead of myself. Sorry about that.
I did it too. I'm really trying to rush to our last meeting.
I'll move approval of the November 2nd journal.
Thanks. And Councilor Pena is offering a second, along with several others. Councilors, any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to please call the vote on the motion on the journal.
Councilor Bassan?
Yes.
Councilor Benton?
Yes.
Councilor Borrego?
Yes.
Councilor Gibson?
Yes.
Councilor Harris?
Yes.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Pena?
Yes.
Councilor Sena?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Now we're back to where I started. Communications and introductions. Are there any changes to the letter of introduction? Councilor Benton, I believe you had a few.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the rules be suspended for the purpose of introducing 041 and placing it on the December 7th agenda for action. 041 is amending sections of the Selection Advisory Committee ordinance to incorporate design build services in the Selection Advisory Committee process.
Thanks. Councilor Pena, is that yours as a second? Or do you have a question? I'm sorry.
I'm sure that'll serve as a second for that, but I did have a question.
We'll take yours as a second and go ahead, ma'am, with your question.
Unrelated to this, so.
All right, then we'll do the motion on the floor first for 041. Seeing no other discussion, Madam Clerk.
Councilor Bassan?
Yes.
Councilor Benton?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Borrego?
Yes.
Councilor Gibson?
Yes.
Councilor Harris?
Yes.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Pena?
Yes.
Councilor Sena?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
9-0.
And Councilor Pena, let's take your question. I think we skipped you earlier. Go ahead and we'll come back.
Thank you. I actually had two questions. One of them was related to moving the meeting just in light of the, the surging cases. Are you for sure we're going to move that meeting just in case? Just clarity on that, because, I think that in light of what's happening now, it's kind of, we should maybe have some availability to just have that. I don't know. Anyway, just a question. And then I just wanted to make sure on the letter of introduction that EC 2212 was actually going to be heard, not this evening, correct?
212, I believe, will be held over until our December 7th meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool.
And thank you, Councilor. Yeah, and related to your question about scheduling, we've noticed the cancellation of the December 21st regular meeting, but we reserve the right, of course, for any emergency meetings, whether that relates to COVID or year-end expenditure changes or anything in that nature. But for the moment, we're working just to try to get the business of the city done a little early this year so that we reserve that right to do that for emergencies if we need it. But the administration's been working with us to get the agendas full and to get things done. So we hopefully can give everybody a break that last week. Councilor Benton, I believe you have another motion on the letter of introduction.
Yes, this is another motion for suspension of the rules. I move the rules be suspended for the purpose of introducing R118 and placing it on the December 7th council agenda for action. R1, the adopted capital implementation program of the city by approving new projects, supplementing current appropriations, and changing the scope of existing projects, otherwise known as the CIP cleanup. I move that suspension of the rules.
Second.
Thank you, sir. I see a number of seconds. We'll take Councilor Borrego. And Councilors, as a reminder, please be sure you work with your staff to review that CIP cleanup bill and changes or amendments to the clerk as quickly as possible so we can work with the administration since we only have one meeting. That was all close for that. Madam Clerk.
Councilor Bassan?
Yes.
Councilor Benton?
Yes.
Councilor Borrego?
Yes.
Councilor Gibson?
Yes.
Councilor Harris?
Yes.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Pena?
Yes.
Councilor Sena?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
9-0.
And finally, I move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of introducing EC 213 and placing on December 7th council agenda for action. EC 213 is the approval of the first supplemental agreement to add monies for fiscal year 21 outside legal services between German Burnett and Associates and the city of Albuquerque. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councilor Bassan. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
Counselor Benton.
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Sena.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
9-0.
Councilor, seeing no other motions for changes to the letter of introduction, Councilor Gibson.
I move approval of the letter of introduction.
And thank you, Councilor Bassan, for that second. And Madam Clerk.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
Counselor Benton.
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Sena.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
9-0.
Councilors, next up, we have reports of committees. Councilor Gibson, FGO.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance and Government Operations Committee met on Monday, November 9th, 2020, and reports out the following items. In the matter of EC 189, 192, 193, 194, 200, and OC 13 and 14, that receipt be noted. In the matter of EC 197 and 199, that they be approved. In the matter of EC 198 and 039, that they be without recommendation. In the matter of R 108 and 110, that they do pass. In the matter of R 109, that it be without recommendation as amended and be acted on at the meeting at which it is reported. I make a motion to accept the committee report.
Thank you, Councilor Benton, for the second. Councilors, any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
Counselor Benton.
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Sena.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yeah.
9-0.
Thank you, councilors. Are there any deferrals or withdrawals at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. Councilors, any changes to tonight's consent agenda? It's a fairly short one. And we specifically want to recognize Ms. Bazan and Ms. Pacheco for volunteering to serve on our city committees and commissions. And we appreciate them and hope we can see them in person sometime soon to say thank you. Councilors, seeing no other discussion, Councilor Gibson.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
And a second from, I see Councilor Bassan. Thank you. Councilor, any other discussion, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
Counselor Benton.
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Sena.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
9-0.
Councilors, we're moving on to announcements. Councilor Benton.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be a committee on guidelines for negotiations tomorrow, November 17th, 10 p.m. via Zoom video conference.
I think it's 10 a.m., but it's your committee, so.
Yeah, I think it'd be a better idea to meet at 10 a.m.
Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee meeting scheduled for Wednesday, November 18th is canceled.
Thank you. As previously mentioned, our December 21st City Council meeting as regularly scheduled is also canceled. Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be an Albuquerque Bernalillo County Government Commission meeting on Thursday, November the 19th at 5 p.m. via Zoom video conference.
Thank you, councilors. We are on final action fairly quickly, I might add. Let's see what we can do here. Councilor Benton, I believe you're first up, 018.
Thank you, Mr. President. 018 is imposing a municipal gasoline tax of 2 cents per gallon, conditional upon voter approval, dedicating the revenue generated by the municipal gasoline tax to rehabilitate public streets and roadway systems for the benefit of the city. I move it do pass.
Thank you, sir, and I'll second that. And Councilor, I believe you have an amendment you want to present as well, and then we'll move to discussion.
I do. And councilors, and for the general public, just the title of that implies that we are imposing the tax by this action. Just to be really clear, by state law, this will require a vote of the general public. And we can talk about that a little bit more. But I will go ahead and move amendment number 1, which is fairly brief. And I'll just read it. On page 1, lines 25 through 26, after the words mobility users, insert a period and delete the remainder of the sentence. And then on page 2, line 3, after pedestrians, add and persons with disabilities as required by the Americans with Disabilities Act. And councilors, this really just had, there was some kind of redundant language on the first page that we thought was self-evident. And then also, I just wanted personally to make clear to the public that these funds, and the paragraph in question talks about prioritizing funds. And this doesn't mean they can't be used for other purposes, but the our backlog of Americans with Disabilities Act work, as we know, is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And that, along with rehabilitation, regular rehabilitation of roadways, needs for lighting, and all the sorts of things that our constituents ask us about. This is a key issue for the city. We've got a long way to go on it, and it does emphasize the ADA and that type of work as being one of the priorities for use of the proceeds of the fund. So I'll move that amendment number 1.
Thank you, sir. That's for amendment number 1. And do we have a second? Thank you, Councilor Gibson. Councilors, is there any discussion on for amendment number 1? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Councilor Gibson.
Yes.
Councilor Harris.
Yes.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Councilor Sena.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you. Councilor Benton, we're back on you to present the bill as amended, and then we'll go to councilors for questions. Councilor Benton.
Right. So, councilors, this is a fairly short 2-page ordinance, really just sending this question to the voters. It also states that the council will choose the election at which this would go on. I know there's been some discussion about whether this should be on next year or maybe the following year, considering the uncertainties we have presently. And I'm certainly open to those, either one, and interested in your thoughts on that. But I do think this is worthwhile to put towards the voters. As I said, longstanding question of many councilors, many present here on this meeting, has been the ADA and our backlog with regard to Americans with Disabilities Act, and with so many more older Americans, people who cannot drive, that really need to depend on our public ways many times, unless they happen to be lucky enough to have a friend or a family member who can drive them around. There are more and more people in need of fully accessible facilities. And aside from the ADA backlog, there's also a huge backlog, as we've discussed recently, with just basic road maintenance. So this would be an opportunity for the voters to think about this and think about their own use of the roadways. And if they were to agree, then we would impose this 2-cent tax, which is the maximum allowable by state law. And then within 60 days, the council will need to pass an election resolution, and we can choose whether that would be at the next municipal or at the next general election. we could also do a vote by mail, but I do not support spending that kind of money for this measure.
Thanks, councilors. Councilors, other questions? Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I do have a couple of questions on this. My first question is, do we have a dedicated source of tax revenue specifically for roads? I know we get some grant money. So is there anybody who can, I don't know, maybe the sponsor can answer that.
Yeah, Mr. President, we recently had a discussion about use of the proceeds from the quarter cent. It's essentially confusing when we talk about a 2 cent and a quarter cent. The quarter cent is a gross receipts tax that is part of our local gross receipts tax package, and that is called the transportation tax. This would be a tax only per gallon on gasoline.
So
in a similar way, if I could, Councilor Gibson, since I'm on that subject, in the same way, we could bond against the revenue, the expected revenue. And so it would be more than, most likely in today's diminished traffic counts, would probably be under 4 million a year. But still, if we were to bond against that, we can do a considerable amount of work.
Thank you. And councilors, I just want to acknowledge Ms. Yara, who knows our budget well, also is available for questions about the finance and the tax options. Councilor Gibson.
Good. So, and I remember when we had those discussions, and Mr. Tom Minicucci really did a really good job in laying that out in a very clear way. And even with the 0.25% transportation tax, there's still a need, a deficit there for road maintenance and rehabilitation. So I guess my next two questions are really related, and I'm just wondering if the sponsor or if you've had any discussions or considered incorporating a price point trigger, like when, for example, gas hits, I don't know what the number would be, to say $2.50, or $3 a gallon or $3.50 a gallon, whatever that should be, that number would fall off. It would be for when gas price is below that level, and whatever that trigger would be. And it seems like wasn't there a study done on this for potential revenues? I don't know if Beaver did it, or it seems to me I saw something like that in the past year or so. And so did they, and I don't remember this, so I'm really asking something I have no recollection at all. In that study, did they look at a trigger, point trigger? And if they did, does anybody recall how that would affect potential revenue from such a tax?
Councilor Gibson, unless the sponsor wants to weigh in, I think Ms. Yara has some information regarding that analysis. Ms. Yara.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So this proposal actually came up back in 2017, and at that time, the council office, along with the budget office upstairs, did a fiscal impact analysis. So based on the gallonage that was being reported at the state level at the time, it was about 240 million gallons a year at wholesale in the city. So we took that and just extrapolated an approximate $4.8 million annually that would bring in for the city. I did kind of refresh that data based on the current economic environment, For the last few years, it looks like this year compared to those years, the gallonage has dropped about 20%. So that would still generate about $3.8 million at current levels. Also, we looked at how much it would cost the city to implement this. Of course, we would need a collection mechanism. And so Treasury gave us some estimates on how much software and staffing would cost to collect and audit that revenue. At that time, again, we estimated about $230,000 for the startup year and about $190,000 each year after that to operate that program. We did not look at any considerations as far as a price point trigger when we did this analysis, nor since. So we haven't looked at that.
Councilor Gibson.
All right, well, thank you. That would be my question. I guess I'd be curious to know, if that would make much of an impact. And I'm thinking about people, who have a hard time affording gas, getting to the gas pump and pumping gas. So, but thank you for that, Ms. Yata. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And councilors, next up, we have Councilor Borrego, then we'll be, then maybe myself, then back to the sponsor. So Councilor Borrego. Councilor Borrego, I think we still have you on mute. Could you try on your side, please?
Sorry, I put you on mute because my dog is barking. I have to admit, Councilor Benton, this is one of those that is really trying at this particular time. It's a very trying issue, especially in light of the fact that the gas just went up again recently in the last couple of days. And the loss of revenue for families in terms of, their paychecks. And I probably am figuring that the information that Stephanie just gave us probably was done before COVID or sometime before COVID. And, I venture to think what percentage of income has been lost by families across the city, and how, I understand that at some point in time this would create jobs, but I'm just wondering if next year is really the appropriate time for us to be going in this direction. And I did hear you say that you had a caveat that maybe the following year might be more appropriate for, but imposing any kind of additional tax, I'm not convinced yet that that is the direction that we should be going in. And I guess I need some more convincing. But I don't have anything in terms of finance to look at in front of me that says, this will offset this percentage of loss for families in terms of creating jobs or something like that, that would show me sort of an economic projection that this is the right direction for us to be going. So I have a lot of questions in my mind still with this particular bill. And, I'm wondering if we need to do some more sort of impact analysis to determine if this is the right direction for us to be going. And I just pose all of these questions because I know the sponsor has the right intentions, in terms of the city. and creating, better infrastructure. I know that you have those intentions for the sponsor, Councillor Benton, but is this the right time for us to be doing this? And, and some fiscal impact analysis that would show me that this is the right direction would be very helpful. So I just throw all of that information out and pose those questions. Thank you, Councillor. And thank you, Council President Davis.
Thank you, Councillor. And let me add my 2 cents and we'll go back to the sponsor to respond to all that and close if that's appropriate, or to open the floor again. Councillor Benton, I appreciate it. You've been working on this issue for a number of years. I supported it a couple of years ago. I support it again, mainly because as you've mentioned, and as we all hear all the time, we have issues with sidewalks, with ADA compliance, I just know, for example, just in my district, in my own neighborhood in Southeast Heights, it took 2 years for Representative Majority Leader Cheryl Stapleton and I to cobble together just $150,000 to do the ADA compliance in about 2 miles worth of sidewalks in one neighborhood that hadn't really had any upgrades since it was built in the 1950s. And there are real issues with that. We've run into right-of-way issues on Zuni, and that's just in my neighborhood. This is a real issue. And as our population gets older, as more of our people are more mobile, I think it's important. And it's a conversation I think voters should be able to have and make a decision for themselves. If you drive over a pothole so many times, you might be willing to pay a little more to have somebody fix it because we don't have all the money in the world. So I think this is a smart strategy. I'm totally okay with letting voters make that decision, and we have an entire year to make that case or not in the public forum, but the law requires us to send this to voters, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. So I will be in support and letting voters make that decision. So Councillor Benton, having heard all that from your colleagues, the floor is back to yours to respond, to open it up, or to close. Oh, Councillor Gibson beat us to this.
Okay.
So.
That's okay.
Sorry, Madam Vice President.
Thank you. Real briefly, I should have started out by saying that I think we need something like this, but I would like to, if we can, make as minimal impact on users, gasoline users, as possible. I think that, definitely even if this should go to the voters, we decide to send it to the voters and it goes next year to the voters, it's still going to take a while to before that tax can be applied. And so we're probably not talking about any less time than at least a year, well, more than a year now, probably. So yeah, I don't know that there's ever a good time to talk about charging more in taxes, but we definitely have the need. It is very expensive now to get things done. So, we pay for it one way or another. And it's just like, we just have to choose our poison and how that's going to be. And I think that it's probably a good policy to use to do it as simply and as fairly across the board, and particularly in this case. So that was not too brief, but I'm finished now. Thank you.
Thank you. And back to Councillor Benton.
And so let me think see if I can remember. I'll go back from the comments in reverse order. Yeah, I guess Councillor Borrego, I just have faith in the people to decide. The voters will decide what whether to take this on or not. We ourselves are not imposing it. And again, I do think that some of the most needy people can't even afford a car, much less the cost of fueling that car throughout the year as needed. And that infrastructure, I did try to make a point about that infrastructure of being able to walk if you need to walk or to at least in a wheelchair to be able to negotiate a sidewalk, which we know there's so many streets throughout the city where the obstructions make it virtually impossible to comply with the ADA. That's it. That is expensive work, and as Councilor Gibson stated, it will, the cost of construction we know has gone through the roof in the recent past. So just raw materials, supply chain, even things like the cost of cement, a lot of the materials that we need for the roadways have become much more expensive, as is labor and less competition in that field of construction. But I do also, as Councilor Borrego also pointed out, yeah, the jobs that can be created, and we had these discussions with regard to the quarter-cent transportation tax, will benefit the community in terms of their wages for local companies, and also can pay back the city to some extent, and to the general public, city and county and state, through gross receipts tax when these construction projects are awarded and bid and contracted. And then just quickly with regard to some sort of a cap, that is something we've talked about off and on. And my sense is that 2 cents out of, what is it now, 2.20 thereabouts. I mean, we don't even notice. I think almost anyone who's driving notes these fluctuations up and down. And this is such a small percentage of the per gallon cost, no matter what it is, whether it's gone down to $2 or whether it goes up to $3.50. It's a small, extremely small increment. So also I meant to make just a quick point with regard to gasoline taxes nationwide. This would bump our tax that we pay. We already pay 37.4 cents to state and federal for per gallon, and so this would bump that up to 39.4, and the U.S. National average of states is 49.5. So we're well below what the average gasoline taxes that are paid nationwide. So I feel like this is a very modest proposal, and I think it has the extra benefit of really putting it out to the voters. If they don't think they can afford it, then they'll vote against it. And but so many of the issues that I encounter every week with infrastructure issues, and this could really be a help. And it, the quarter cent for transportation tax, we just allocated pretty big projects for the most part. They're millions of dollars and up, and very little was set aside for just Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. That's an obligation we have under the federal law, and it's a moral obligation we have as a city to take on that backlog. But that's I guess those are the main points. I would ask for your support, and knowing that this would be a public decision as to whether it goes, not our decision. This would just be to put it to a ballot. And as President Davis said, or I believe it was Councilor Gibson, we're probably looking at a year and a half before this could even be implemented. If we decided, and I'm totally open to this, with the will of the council, we could vote on it both ways, whether to put it on the muni election next fall or the next general election in '92. But with that, Mr. President.
Councilor Benton, I believe Councilor Borrego had a question.
Okay.
Before we close here. Councilor Borrego.
Actually, he just answered my question about when it would go on the ballot, because
it's up to us.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
He's so smart, he answered it before you asked. None, Counselor Benton, that sounded like a close.
Yeah. I didn't get to I urge your support, but I urge your support.
Thank you. And seeing no other discussion, I'll ask Ms. Ortega to call the vote.
Hassan,
No.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Harris,
No.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
No.
Counselor Sena,
No.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
That passes on a 5-4 vote as amended.
Thank you, counselors. Next up, Counselor Borrego, R111.
Thank you. I'm pulling up my notes here. R111, just in summary, what this resolution does is it acknowledges the professional work of city employees and preparation and training. And I drafted this in light of the situation with COVID because I think it's really important that we are recognizing our employees, first of all, but secondly is that we support them as they face the challenges within the community to keep their positions and work to actually get better positions. And that would be through eventual training. And I realize that we're having difficulty, creating those training programs and supporting them financially. But this would actually give us the opportunity to create, advancement programs and training programs for the future, so that these individuals, and this is not just for degreed individuals, it's people that have certifications, and basically supporting them through a task force that would be created to provide opportunities and looking for those opportunities, whether they be in the city itself or outside of the city, and reporting back to the city council as to how we can keep a professional workforce, and a workforce that helps, move our city forward.
Thank you, Counselor. And
So with that, I make a motion that we approve this. And right now, there's no fiscal impact to the city other than creating the task force.
thank you, ma'am. And Counselor Benton, I see that as a second. Counselors, any discussion or questions for the administration? Counselor Borrego, looks like you may have gotten lucky. Thank you for bringing this. I think it's important.
We have been working with the Human Resources Department on this.
You've always been a good champion for our city workers and trying to improve their work, and we appreciate that. So seeing no other, Counselor Borrego, we're back to you if you have anything further to close.
Urge your support.
Madam Clerk, would you please call?
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
Yes.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yeah. Yes.
9-0.
Congratulations, Counselor Borrego. Counselor Sena, R109.
Thank you, Mr. President. R109 is removing the aggregate maximum limit of economic relief grants provided to small and local for-profit organizations negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act. I move A to pass.
And do we have a second? Thank you, Counselor Bassan. Counselor Sena, back on the bill.
Just before we move on, I would love to actually have the Director of Economic Development give an update as to how many businesses applied through the first and second round, and kind of an overview of, you know, what occurred on Friday as we were passing out checks and kind of the conversations that were had.
Council President and Councilor Sena, thank you for the opportunity. Happy to give an update. As far as how many businesses have applied so far, in total, we have received 823 applications. In round one, I've shared this, I believe, with all of you before. We received 611 applications. In round two, we received an additional 212 applications. It's important to note that every application in the first round has been reviewed at least one time. We have week one, we funded 97, and Councilor Sena, those are the grant awardees that you referenced on Friday. And to date, 42 additional businesses will have also been through the queue and will be approved for funding, for a total of 139 businesses so far. Also, in addition, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this, that so we've cut 97 checks. So 97 checks have been printed, but of those 97, 64 businesses picked up their grant award checks on Friday.
Thank you. And Councilor Sena, you yielded the floor to the director, so I want to give you the first chance, and then we have a couple of councilors' questions. Councilor Pena, myself, Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry if I did miss this as well. Can you tell me a total amount of all of those that applied, including those that didn't meet the grant criteria and who got letters of rejection, or disqualification, I should say, just because I've gotten numerous emails over the weekend, just kind of asking what were the parameters. And I just want to make clear too to the public that the PPP was not applied. So can you kind of just walk through that process and how many applied?
Certainly. So for a total in both round one and round two, 823 applications were received from businesses. Of those 823 applications, 113 businesses were declined due to the aggregate amount. Again, week one, we funded 97 businesses. We have 42 additional businesses in the queue to be funded, for a total of 139 businesses. We have 570 business applications that are still pending review. They are either in the queue of a grant officer or a grant supervisor, or we may be waiting on additional documents from the business. And it's taking about the time frame for a business to be notified of their approval really varies. But upon them being approved, once they have been approved, the business is able to pick up their grant check the following Friday. And to answer your question about the approval process, now we have, Counselor, we have 7 grant officers that are completing the initial review of all the applications, and they're working with businesses to help them complete the application. We have to keep in mind that there are many businesses that maybe submit the wrong document, or they're missing certain documents, or maybe they have forgot to update their business registration, so their business registration is not up to date. So once all of the documents have been provided, then the application is then moved to, again, one of the funding supervisors for final review. Once the funding supervisor confers compliance with the resolution, number one, then it's moved on to be approved for funding. And the process can take up to 2 weeks due to, of course, the volume of applications, but truly it's really, and it's incumbent upon the business to make sure that we're receiving the accurate and appropriate documents to take them to the next step in the next, into the next process of the application.
Yeah, thank you for that, Director. I know while I was there handing out and just talking to some of the businesses, asking them what the process was like to them, I will say for the majority, they actually noted how great your office was doing. And some businesses applied to about 14 grants. And this grant was the only one that they qualified for. And just noting that this was a very easy process, and kudos to your team really working through it. I really do appreciate the hard work that they did, even to our AmeriCorps volunteer, Joe, who did that grassroots outreach and going knocking on businesses and handing out flyers in even Vietnamese and Spanish. So I just wanted to appreciate that. And, I know counselors are lined up for some questions, so I'm going to yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Sena. Next up, Councilor Pena, then Councilor Bassan, then myself. Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Ms. Jaramillo. I actually just wanted to mention something. I had some questions I asked Ms. Yara from our office today. There was an article on, I think, one of the channels yesterday from a gentleman who owns Ice Cream. I was just hoping that maybe you could reach out to him. He reported on the news that he was not able to receive any city funding due to he didn't have any employees or something like that was reported. And I actually asked Ms. Yara, and he said he still should qualify. So I'm just hoping maybe somebody from your office, I don't know the gentleman, but I'd seen the article and I said he probably just doesn't have the right guidance or something. So that'd be awesome. I don't know his name either. Just ice cream.
Certainly, Council President Davis and Councilor Pena, I'm happy to have somebody in my office reach out to him, and I know exactly who you're talking about. We'll make sure to get in contact with him as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, so I submitted some questions yesterday to the director. Hello, director. And please, if it's okay, just bear with me because some of these are a lot of numbers, right? Flying at all of us. But so what I'm hearing is that the Economic Development Department has received a total of 823 applications between the two processes.
Correct.
Which is sad to me because I was really hoping to hear that at least 1,000 businesses would have applied in the first couple of rounds. So I definitely, what are we still doing for advertising and communications and making sure that everyone out there knows? Because I've been texting, I've been emailing, I've been calling, I was going. So now how are we making sure that others are still learning about it, especially with what Councilor Sena was saying? Just to make sure that we're covering that ground, regardless of the aggregate amounts and not.
Certainly, Council President Davis and Councilor Bassan, happy to walk through our communications plan. We continue, Councilor Sena mentioned this grassroots approach that we took with distributing flyers. We continued that over the weekend. We continue to use our partners to distribute information via their newsletter announcements in English. We are continuing to promote via social media in both English and Spanish. We, of course, have a City of Albuquerque announcement banner on our website. We are promoting through our economic development partners. We also have prepared notifications for the small business via our small business listserv, our small business office listserv, and continue to pitch, of course, and promote to local media, both radio and television. And on October 26th, we sent all of the flyers to our respective, all of your respective city council analysts in both English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And we certainly hope that you're distributing the notifications through your respective newsletters. We can resend those out so you make sure that you're sending the announcements to your constituents. but we will continue and have continued to engage all of our key partners in promoting, whether it be our small business organizations or chambers of commerce. But again, we have taken a true grassroots approach, distributing flyers to grocery stores, to strip malls, to ensure that businesses that wouldn't otherwise, hear about an opportunity via social media, or maybe they're not a part of a chamber of commerce or an economic development organization. We want to make sure that where businesses, we've distributed flyers to churches and community centers, and now, of course, with the current shutdown, we're not sure what that's going to look like. But we will continue with our aggressive key engagement campaign and our communications plan throughout the entire process to ensure that as many and all businesses are made aware of the opportunity.
Thank you, Director. Mr. President, I have a few more that I had submitted, if that's all right with you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. How many, and I think you did say this, but can you just clarify so that I'm keeping it straight? How many applications are currently pending approval?
Sure. Council President Davis and Councilor Bassan. So right now we have 570 applications that are pending review and approval. So they're at different stages of the process. Some applications are in the queue of a grant officer. Some applications are missing various documents. So we have a total of, and let me make sure I say that number again correctly. 500 and just going back up here, 570 that are pending approval.
Thank you, Director. And then you said that the businesses, I'm reviewing my questions that I sent you. So the time frame is about 2 weeks from beginning to end of when the application comes through in general, right?
Right, that's what we're seeing right now.
And so how much, okay, never mind. I can do the math on that. Thank you. I'm concerned that, are we going to go back? What's the plan to go back to the 113 businesses that have been declined? If we do agree to get rid of the aggregate terminology, are we going to, is that kind of the first touch and the first plan that the department has?
We would, Council President Davis and Councilor Bassan, we would just add those 113 back into the queue. And so, of course, we would add the 113 to the 570 because we have not reviewed any of those applications right now.
Okay. So just to clarify, so you'll put them back in the queue, meaning they don't have to really reach out to have it be looked at again. It's just that you'll start evaluating them, correct?
Council President Davis, Councilor Bassan, yes, that is correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then I have a couple more. So I noticed today while I was looking at the website at Economic Development that the time frame for the last process that's scheduled, we were originally told that it would be November 30th to December 11th. And I'm wondering why now it's posted as December, I think it said December 3rd or something.
December 3rd, yes, which is approximately 3 weeks away.
Well, and why has that date been changed? Because at the very beginning, we were told that we were going to have an elongated third session, so that way it would allow more time. And it was scheduled from the notes I have that we had with one of our meetings before this even got voted on. The third phase was scheduled to begin on November 30th, allowing for almost 2 weeks of the application process.
So Council President Davis and Councilor Bassan, I'm happy to check to see why we moved that up to December 3rd. It may be of something to do with the software, but I can double check and get right back to you.
Okay, that would be awesome, Director, because I mean, if we're talking about the finish line being too close to the end of the year, I don't know why we're waiting till December 3rd to start the third round when we should be starting it sooner and do the November 30th to December 3rd, so to speak, rather than the last part of it. And then let's see, sorry, thank you, Mr. President. So the applicants that will be prioritized, I'm hoping that there's still that process or that vision in place that people that have not received any funding, how is it planned to ensure that they get first dibs on making sure that they get the $10,000 in case, or is it just kind of a first come, first serve if the aggregate terminology gets removed?
So Council President Davis and Councilor Bassan, I mean, because we have already, we've already closed round 1 and round 2. Those that have not received any other funding have taken priority, obviously, because we were not, we disqualified 113 businesses. And so those, if you all do agree and vote with Councilor Sena and approve her amendment, removing that aggregate amount, those 113 businesses will be placed back in the queue, but it will be on a first come, first served basis. I think that if we have to go back and, you know, compare whether or not, or try to evaluate whether or not those businesses already received funding, it will just increase another administrative burden. And so in round 1 and round 2, those businesses, again, that didn't receive any other funding have already taken priority, if that makes sense.
It does. If just one more clarifying question for that on that topic, Director. So if these 113 businesses go back into the queue, they'll sort of go at the bottom of what's already been submitted. Is that in theory? I realize it's all digital mainly, yeah. But in theory, they'll go to kind of the bottom of that list, and then they will now be included and not disqualified automatically.
Council President Davis, Councilor Bassan, I'm fairly certain that that's the way it works, but I can check with our Salesforce software to see how it might work. But yeah, I've made it. I will clarify that. Let me double check on that.
Okay, thank you. For now, Mr. President, I think that's all, but I'm going to review and see if I missed any. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bassan. Councilor Jones, Councilor Pena, and then myself, and then we'll try to go to a vote. Councilor Jones.
And thank you, Mr. President, but Councilor Bassan asked the question that I was going to ask, and she got a very good answer, so I will pass. Thank you.
Councilor Pena. Yes, Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to say that I just had Rachel text me the current flyer that we had received in our email, and it has the deadline of October. So if you can email us updated flyer, I would appreciate it so I can send it out either this evening or tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Yes, Council President Davis, Councilor Pena, certainly we'll get you the new information. You got it.
Thank you.
And so, thank you. And I just want to add, Director Jaramillo, please extend my appreciation, particularly to all of your staff. I know you have, I think you said 7 folks working on it. Particularly, I know that I've worked a couple of times now with David Sayers, who's been working on a few of those grants. And I happened to see him on Instagram up late at home one night, going through those to be sure these businesses could get qualified in time to meet the first deadline. So David's done a great job. I know all your staff have, and we appreciate them working hard on this. It'll be great to see more of those awards coming out. And important to note, as you said, sort of buried in a lot of the back and forth, but the first round of funding did not necessarily mean that was the end for anyone who applied in the first round. It's just the first folks that got approved, and they're still approving and reviewing applications from the first round. And so I just want to make it clear to folks that are following along, and David educated me about that today, that there are still some first round applications that are going through the review process. So folks that applied early and maybe have not received a notice may still receive that notice this week or next as that goes through the process. Is that correct, Director?
Council President Davis, yes, that is correct. Now, everyone in the first round has at least been communicated with at least once. There are a lot of businesses that applied in that first round that were missing documents. Many of them needed to renew their business registration. So yes, Council President Davis, you are correct.
Thanks. Councilor Bassan, I know you had an amendment. I want to be sure if you want to present it, we give you a chance here and you have your hand up. I believe that's what this is for. And then
I have, Mr. President, I have a couple more questions, but then I'll do my amendment if you don't mind.
Briefly, Councilor, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm hoping that, is there a plan in place for contacting, or let me know and I'll contact and help reach out to the 113 businesses, should this pass, of reaching out to them and saying, hey, you're back in the queue, don't give up hope. kind of a thing. So I just want to make sure to communicate that. Let me know how I can help with that, because I'm willing to, but I'm hoping someone reaches out to communicate that it's not just dead in the water. Did you know about any of how did we look at the technical issues that have been happening with some of the applicants? Is it on our end with IT? Is it on their end? Do we know?
So, Council President Davis and Councilor Bassan. So to answer your first question, Councilor Bassan, yes, those 113 businesses that were initially declined due to the aggregate amount will be contacted and made aware that they're being placed back in the queue. We have a listserv, we have their contact information, their phone numbers, and their email addresses. So we most certainly will reach out to them. And I'm sure they will be very happy to hear from us, should you all agree to Councilor Sena's amendment. And number two, the one business that you sent me, yes, reach out to him, and we couldn't find anywhere in the system, Councilor Bassan, where they had submitted their application, but it could be that, so we're trying to figure out with Salesforce if it was a technical glitch, but we couldn't find anywhere in the system where their application was pending approval, or maybe they attempted to apply. So we're working on that today, and we'll get you an answer before, hopefully by tomorrow morning.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And truly, I need to say it too. It's not overlooked at how hard you all are working, and I really appreciate it. And thank you for answering all of these questions. I am done asking questions, Mr. President. Would you like me to move my amendment?
That's up to you, ma'am, but you do have the floor.
Thank you. I would like to move my amendment number 1 to R20-109. On page 3, after line 3, insert the following. J, awards granted after November 16th shall be prioritized to applicants who have not previously received COVID-19 relief funds under the state of New Mexico or Bernalillo County programs. To me, this is just, this is a cleanup, or in my opinion, making sure that we're very clear about all the discussions we've had and putting this into the legislation, saying that we are going to prioritize putting the people that haven't received any money ahead of those who might have already received municipal, county, or state grants, even if there's no aggregate amount with the limit.
And we have a second. I think that's Councilor Borrego is the second there. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Borrego, do you have a question or just a second? Thank you. And Councilor Benton? No, you were offering the same. Councilor Sena?
Thank you for that. I just wanted to clarify. I know that, we've been having these conversations, but I think it's been a little bit confusing to a lot of businesses, and kind of what I've been hearing, where, they don't think that they qualify, some of the restrictions that are there, even though they would qualify. So, for this wouldn't mean that, say they got 8,000 from the county and they're applying for 2,000 to meet that 10,000 aggregate amount, that they wouldn't get the priority and they would get sent back into the line of the queue? Or would this just to say, like, if you met that 10,000 at another time? I just wanted some clarity on that, just because I don't want businesses to assume that, oh, they already got assistance, and even though they didn't meet that aggregate $10,000 amount, that they wouldn't get a priority line. And my second question really is also to think about the timeline of this. I hope that we're not adding more administrative burdens through this process. I mean, they're barely cranking out the checks through this first round. And I certainly don't want the economic development team to work through Christmas to have to crank through to get the funding out, because we are on a crunch and deadline to spend this funding before the end of December. So if you can clarify those two questions, I would appreciate that.
Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Sena. The intention of this entire resolution began with wanting to help as many businesses as possible, and it was intended to also make sure that we were helping people and businesses that hadn't already received funding. So now we're changing the rules in the game, as was stated last meeting by a counselor, and I think that that's very accurate in saying, if we're going to change it, let's still recognize that we want to have the importance met to aid these businesses that haven't received any help. I'm confident from the numbers that we're seeing that there's a lot of businesses out there that still aren't even aware that they qualify for this or that they even know it exists. So I would like to continue trying to make sure that we find any method possible, which now is going to be even harder, that being that so many of them are going to be closed for the next 2 weeks. So I think that in addition to that, I'm just saying I want to prioritize ones that haven't had help. However, it might be a moot point if we're trying to help 1,000 businesses and we've only had 800 applications come in. So to me, it's a protection saying that we are trying to, again, share the love. And then can you please remind me of your second question?
Sure, just of the timeline, but I wanted to say again, this wouldn't cap out those that say got 8,000 through the county and they still haven't met that aggregate of 10,000. Would they not be able to apply or just be lower priority?
Thank you, Mr. President, Councilor Sena. Well, it's my understanding that if we vote on this, we're taking out the word aggregate. So that again, won't matter anymore. We're saying that applicants who have received funding from the county or elsewhere, even if it was up to 10,000, can still apply if this passes. If your resolution passes, then city applicants can apply and get up to $10,000 again, regardless of if they've received money from elsewhere. So to me, it's not complicating it further. It's just saying that if somebody hasn't received any money, let's make sure that they kind of get first dibs at it. And as far as the timeline goes, that's why I'm saying, why are we pushing back the third round to start in December when it's supposed to start on November 30th, which was what I was originally expecting. And so I'm hoping that we find out from economic development that we're not waiting until a week into December before we open up the third phase. We should do this as soon as possible. So that way economic development and whomever is helping on this team can make sure that they are processing these and have as much time possible to write the checks before December 30th.
Mr. President, can I do a follow-up?
Councilor Sena, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, since we're talking about process, I would love to hear from the director and those that are actually doing the processing, you know, what this amendment would do in terms of that process.
Director, if you know.
Sure, Council President Davis, Councilor Sena. You know, it's been our desire to remove the aggregate amount because that just us having to cross-reference whether or not a business has received funding from the county, the state, or the city has certainly added to the amount, the timeline and the process. And if, as I mentioned earlier, because we opened round 1 and round 2 and have already closed those 2 rounds, those businesses that have not received any other funding have already taken priority. I do also have a question, if I may, when it comes to the time element of preference. Do we wait until all applications are processed and then award those folks who have gotten some other, and then award to folks that have gotten some other funds? It seems like there might be an unnecessary delay. Will this increase the administrative burden? It might, because we'll still have to, you know, cross-reference whether or not it would be our desire to place those 113 businesses that were disqualified back in the queue. We are around the corner, and it is, I'd also like to, if I may, answer Councilor Bassan's question. My team just messaged me and said the reason we pushed back the date to December 11th, from December 11th to, I'm sorry, excuse me, December 7th to December 11th, is so that we could keep consistent. It's just 1 week instead of 2. So that we could just keep consistent with our messaging and the process. And it seemed like we learned, you know, we're learning things as we go. And so that is the reason for, but it certainly doesn't mean we can't move it back to November 30th. I hope I answered your question, Councilor Sena.
Councilor Sena? Seeing nothing further, let me just say, as far as the amendment goes, I understand what the sponsor's trying to do here, but this just seems to me like sort of an unnecessary last minute sort of change that would go back. I think the administration could administratively go back and reprioritize based on the amount of funds, but we hear that there are still a number of folks that need to be reviewed based on the early criteria. There's at this point certainly no shortage of funds available for those folks and future applicants. And so to me, it doesn't appear that that this is necessary. I think everybody has a bite at the apple. And when we're thinking about all the bureaucratic process, it just, to me, seems like it's adding another layer of review and an extra step that's not necessary. So for that reason, I'd vote against it, just to ensure that we can continue to have these moving forward quickly. But Councilor Pena wants to weigh in, and then we'll go back to the amendment sponsor, Councilor Bassan, to close, and then we'll be back on the bills. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually just wanted to say that, I really appreciate, the sponsor now and then the sponsor prior, Councilor Bassan and Councilor Jones, who had put this forward initially. I just think it's really important, I'm kind of leaning against not supporting the amendment, but I just really want to really give kudos to our council and our lady councilors who really stepped up to help businesses in our community in a really, really trying time. So I really appreciate that. And yes, I did say the ladies, Councilor Davis.
To be fair, boys voted for it too, but thank you.
Yeah, they did, but they were the sponsors. I was commenting on the sponsors.
Yes, ma'am. Councilor Bassan, we're back on you to close on the amendment number 1, and then we'll take a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just really feel like this is more of the semantic. I see everyone's point with this, but it's just saying we do prioritize people that haven't gotten any. And now we want to make sure that they still get treated with some kind of priority. And while I am in my close, I would really, really urge the Department of Economic Development to not wait until December 4th to get this, or December 7th, excuse me, to get the third round started. It was originally planned to come out on just November 30th. And if we're running out of time, I do not understand what the delay is and why we need to wait to start the third round when we need to get this going so that we can answer and make everybody happy that's making all of these arguments. So even if you're going to go ahead and bring it down to 1 week, I remember specifically being told that it was almost 2 more weeks. So that way the process could have more time so that any last lingering people would have an opportunity. And now it's being shortened and delayed. So if we're going to shorten it, please, I'm asking you to consider moving it back to November 30th until December 4th or whatever date that may be. Other than that, I really do urge your support.
Seeing no other discussion, I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Councilor Gibson.
I'm going to vote yes. However, I because this is such a late date, I would just hope that the department would make its best attempt to honor those who had not received any other help. But my vote is yes.
Councilor Harris.
No.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
No.
Councilor Sena.
No.
Councilor Davis.
No.
That passes on a 5-4 vote. The amendment.
Thank you. Councilor Sena, we're back on your bill as amended.
Thank you. I'll use this time to just close. I, really appreciate the two councilors, Councilor Jones, Councilor Bassan, and first starting this whole resolution to get the funding out to our small businesses. So I do appreciate them. We're just here rolling with the punches with COVID, and hopefully this brings some support to economic development as to getting the applications done rather quickly and sending that out. I really want to appreciate her whole team, and thank you for allowing me to jump in on Friday to watch them in action. So I do really appreciate that, and urge your support.
Ms. Ortega, would you please call the vote?
Councilor Bassan.
Yes.
Councilor Benton.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Councilor Gibson.
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
9-0.
Congratulations, that matter carries, and counselors seeing no other business.
Counselor
Meeting.
Davis.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to reconsider 018.
Okay, so counselors on the floor, we have a motion to reconsider 018, which is the municipal gas tax to voters resolution. The vote to reconsider requires a second. I see Counselor Pena. And so I ask the clerk to review the rules for us as the motion to reconsider is just a majority vote. Is that right, Madam Clerk? Great. Counselors, any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in ask the clerk to call the roll for the motion to reconsider the vote on 018. A vote for yes to reconsider would allow the council to reconsider its vote and revisit 018. A vote for no would leave the vote as it stands on the record. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Bassan,
Yes.
Counselor Benton,
No.
Counselor Borrego,
Yes.
Counselor Gibson,
No.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
No.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Sena,
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
No.
5-4.
So councilors, we are back on item 018. Councilor Borrego, since you made the motion to reconsider, I'm going to give you the floor to explain, and then we'll go to the original sponsor, Councilor Benton, to respond, and hopefully we'll bring it to a close. Councilor Borrego.
Thank you, counselors. I would like to reconsider my vote regarding this particular bill. And I had a discussion with our clerk, Stephanie, and I know that this bill can be raised at another time. I, again, discussed my uncomfortableness, if that's a word, regarding the economic forecast for next year. And in light of the discussion that we just had with businesses and knowing the numbers that are, struggling and closing and families that are really struggling, I would like to reconsider my vote.
Obviously.
So,
Councilor Benton, do you, as the original sponsor, do you want to have the floor there? I saw a motion, or it looked like you might.
Yes, and I guess I would ask the clerk about this. There's a motion on the table. I guess, the motion already passed to reconsider the vote. But would a motion for deferral take precedence?
Yes. The clerk is saying and that it would. Councilor Benton, are you offering a motion for deferral?
Yes, Mr. President. I'll move a deferral. If I could, may I also ask the clerk when this expiration on this is, because it's fairly soon in the new year.
She's way smarter than me, so we're going to let her just jump in instead of telling me what to say.
Mr. President, Counselor Benton, I had looked that up earlier, and it was introduced on June 1st of this year. Therefore, you have until June 1st of 2021 before its expiration.
Okay, I would like to move a 6-month deferral.
Mr. President, if I could, 90 days is the max per our rules.
90 then.
Okay.
So the motion on the floor is for a 90-day deferral, and Councilor Borrego's offered a second. And so the sponsor has offered a deferral. Is there any question on the deferral? Thank you, Councilor Jones, for withdrawing that question. Seeing no other discussion, the matter on the floor is for a 90-day deferral on 018. Madam Clerk, would you please call?
Counselor Bassan.
Yes.
Counselor Benton.
Yes.
Counselor Borrego.
Yes.
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
No.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Sena.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Passes on an 8-1 vote to defer for 90 days.
So councilors, that matter is deferred as if it never happened. And now there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. As a reminder, if you have legislation or anything else that we need to consider before the end of the year, please get it to the clerk as soon as possible. And I appreciate and want to acknowledge and say thank you to Mr. Padilla up in the mayor's office who's been working with us to move the administration's legislation down. So our next meeting, our last meeting of the year is scheduled for 2 weeks. So if you have anything, get it to us. Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.